So good evening, everybody. My name is Jan Bloom, and I want to welcome you to the Wednesday Women Wellness Wisdom Workshop. My favorite thing to say every time we do this is that, because I think I've mastered it. I stumbled on it a few times, but now I got it smooth. I'm really delighted to be hosting this type of venue because I believe that it has such a tremendous impact on the lives of so many women and men. We always have men in the room because there's a lot of women that they care about that they want to share the information with. But just to give you a quick snapshot of who we are as a group of women that are working together internationally, we're a group of dedicated women that are very, very determined to bring health and happiness and inspiration to our communities, not just locally, but nationally and all over the world. Each month we host a different type of workshop with a different speaker on a different topic, and we cover everything from cancer to heart health to hormonal health and physical health and obesity and all the topics that women need to learn about and don't always get to talk about. We provide that venue each month, and we also record these, and that way you can use this as a resource to share when you have women that cross your path that you believe deserve to know about this. So tonight's topic is going to be really incredible because our speaker is incredible. We're going to be learning tonight. Our instructor is Hourtovenko from a very, very northern, chilly in the winter part of Canada. And she's from a city, I believe it's called Sudbury. And I want you to know that her credentials were way too many for me to memorize. And so I'm going to cheat a little bit and reference my notes because she is highly credentialed and quite an authority to be speaking to us tonight on the topic that she's discussing. First of all, she is a registered nurse practitioner. Karen is a life business coach. She's a therapist. She's a master and a trainer of neuro-linguistics, time therapy, am I saying timeline therapy practitioner, and a hypnotherapist. So by the end of this conversation, you will all be hypnotized to really believe everything that you're learning. She has tremendous degrees. I can tell you, I could say to you, she's got her BSCN, she's got her MBA, she's got her PhD in the field of mental health. And my husband would probably really like that I'm learning from somebody that does mental health counseling tonight. Her coaching practice focuses on executives and managers and professionals and entrepreneurs and teams and individuals to change their thinking patterns to create their desired goals and altering their lifestyles that will support the success that they're seeking to achieve in their lives. She is extremely qualified and probably trained in the most advanced technologies that are available to support human change and development. It wasn't long ago that she and I were communicating, and it was from a hotel room that she was in Las Vegas because she was attending, I don't know, it was maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 week seminar. She just never stops learning, and it's just a blessing to be able to work with her. She's the owner of Life Zone Incorporated, and probably her best, most favorite accomplishment is being a wife, being a mom. She's got a husband and 3 young adult children and 2 dogs. So on that note, I want to introduce you to Karen Hourtovenko. You're in for a treat. Karen, I'm going to turn the platform over to you.
Thanks, Jan. Every time I hear people introduce me, I always sit back and think, who is that person that somebody's talking about? My life journey has been interesting, to say the least, and I do what I do today because of some of the things that each of you have dealt with, whether it's been challenges with your own health, weight, thinking patterns. I've had all those challenges in my life, and what Jan doesn't know, and she didn't know me back then, that when I was in my teens into my early 20s, I actually was about a size 15, lady size 15. And when I was 20 and I graduated from nursing school, I had elevated cholesterol, high blood pressure, and I was on my way to becoming the typical type 2 diabetic. So I have dealt with my own issues when it comes to food and eating. And more importantly, I have dealt with thousands of people over the last almost 30 years of my career and specifically in the last 20 years in the area of food. And what I've determined over the years, and which is why I went more into the counseling role from my nurse practitioner traditional role, is that it's usually not the food. It's actually most often never the food. It's often usually the issue behind the food. But emotional eating is a part of many people's lives, and for the most part, people who struggle with it think there's something wrong with them, that they should know better, or they don't understand why they do what they do. So we're going to talk about some of that tonight, and we're going to talk about it in the traditional sense, and I'm going to flip it to the mindset, because I think we have to talk about sort of what people think it is first, and then go from there and talk about what the focus that I actually use that I find is much more successful in getting people to shift their eating challenges. So let's just look at some basics. Are you stressed? And do you eat when you're stressed? Is it emotional? Is it, I need a pick-me-up, like I've had a bad day and I deserve to have a treat tonight? Or I haven't had something to eat all day and my sugar's crashing, so I need that. And would something like this be interesting to you at that point? Something sweet, or would it be something salty? And, it could be either or. The bottom line is, if it's something like this, it's usually a signal that there's something going on in the body that we have to take a different look at and see if there's something else we can change. So, emotional eating is or is it stress? I'm just going to actually try to close this down a bit so you can see my slides a little better. Is it emotional eating, or is it stress eating, as they call it? And if it is it to satisfy the emotional component of what's going on in your day rather than to satisfy the physical hunger? And that's an important thing to ask yourself, because there is a difference between I need sugar to feel better and I need something to eat because I'm physically hungry. And many people turn off or don't want to notice the difference between the two. So ice cream, for example, when you're feeling down, pizza for when you're bored or you're lonely, that drives through after a stressful day because you just need something to pick you up. Now, and the other piece is, if you're not eating all day because you're too busy to stop, then obviously your body is wanting food. But in that situation, it's more than just the stress of the day. It's a combination of not eating as well as stress. And most of us don't look for a carrot or an apple when we've had that type of day. So most of the information you'll find on the internet or in journals or in books will talk about emotional eating is when your primary emotional coping mechanism is to go open the refrigerator when you're stressed, or if you're upset, or if you're angry, or lonely, or exhausted, or even bored. And, those are things that you should ask yourself. When I'm hungry, am I really hungry? Or am I upset, angry, lonely, exhausted, or bored? And unfortunately, it becomes an unhealthy cycle where the real feeling or problem is never really addressed. And that's the challenge I find with a lot of people. And, I see most of my clients are women, which is a good thing, I guess. I think women are the ones who actually look for answers, and their male counterparts maybe not so much. But men and women alike can emotionally eat. And that's an important thing to be, aware of. It's not just females versus males. So if you're an emotional eater, do you eat more when you're feeling stressed? And do you eat when you're not hungry or when you're full? Do you eat to calm or soothe yourself when you're sad, mad, bored, anxious, etc.? Do you reward yourself with food? A lot of people say, you know what, I've been on a diet and this is my treat night. Is it? Or is it just something you've decided you're going to reward yourself with? Do you regularly eat when you're stuffed, you're already stuffed? So people that are more driven by food and not sort of from the nutritional standpoint often don't know when to stop eating when they're already full. Now, this is a good one. Do you eat food to make you feel safe? And for many people, it's like that being a friend. If somebody's lonely and sitting down to a container of ice cream or a bag of chips could be like having a friend next to you. It's that comfort feeling, which actually is a chemical drive and a chemical reaction after you've eaten it. And do you feel powerless or out of control around food? And this is something that women tell me often, that they just feel powerless, not only in the area of food, but in many areas of their life. So that's sort of the basic stuff. And you can find that information almost anywhere. So I'm sure it's not anything you haven't heard before. But I thought it was a great way to preface really where I'm going to go tonight. And that's to look at sort of how this works at the mind level. And this is not the brain. The brain is the organ in your head, but we have a conscious mind and an unconscious mind. And so I want to give you a little bit of background of how the mind works. And when I figured this out, it totally changed how I not only looked at my food and the food of my clients, but how we actually look at life in general. So the conscious mind, which is the top portion, if you can imagine your mind being like an iceberg, it's that top portion of the iceberg that you can see above water. And really, it's a very small part. And from the amount of time that we use our conscious mind, it's about 10% of the time, is what theorists believe. And so it's the things that we have to do consciously, meaning something new, a new habit. If you have a detour in your highway that you're driving from A to B and you've gone that trip forever and you have to go around a detour, you sort of have to wake up a bit so that you can actually figure out where you're going. So it's that type of behavior that you have to use or go through when you have to sort of wake up out of your everyday things. So if you change the position of your room and your bed at night, and you change the whole room around and you get out of bed at night, you may not know where to get to the washroom because the path is now different. So something new that you have to be totally awake. And that's about 10% of the time. Now, the unconscious mind, however, is a very interesting component of what most people are not aware of. And it is what runs our life 90% of the time. It is the goal getter. So the conscious mind above is the goal setter, and the unconscious mind is the goal getter. And some of the actions that the unconscious mind does is that it stores memories. It represses negative memories from the past, ones that we don't want to remember, although for some reason it's caused an emotional insult on the unconscious mind or the psyche. It's the domain of our emotions, so all of our emotions are stored at the unconscious level. It's very habitual. It's very repetitive. And to have a habit, you have to do something over and over again to make it a habit. And in order to get to the unconscious mind where we don't have to think about it any longer, it has to be repetitious. So in the form of from the eating standpoint, we'd have to do a behavior over and over and over again until it becomes at the unconscious level and therefore a habit. Therefore, we do these things basically like we're asleep during the day. So unconsciously, we do things 90% of the time without even thinking we're doing it. Now, it takes orders directly from the conscious mind. So at some point, what's in the unconscious mind had to be a thought or a direction from the conscious mind until it became so habitual. Now the unconscious mind just does it without thinking. Now it does not process negatives. And this is a really, really interesting concept to be aware of, because if you don't understand this, then you won't think about the words that you use every day. So if I say to myself, I'm not going to diet today, or I'm not going to be on a diet, or I'm not going to eat that, the unconscious mind doesn't process the not. It processes the action of I'm going to. Or when we say things that are negative, like I am overweight, I am unhealthy, I am whatever, and we think if we call our behavior or call a diagnosis, then we should be able to change it. But unfortunately, the unconscious mind takes it as truth, and it will continue to play it out at the conscious level. So it doesn't process negative. So be very cautious with the language that you use and what you call yourself or what you hear other people say about food and or you as a person. It's very symbolic. Everything that the unconscious mind processes is in the form of a picture. And so if you think about somebody, you'll probably think about a picture in your mind. If I said to you, don't think of a blue tree, what would you think about? You'd probably think about a blue tree. The mind processes through pictures. So if we have a picture of ourselves and don't like ourselves in that picture, such as having weight that we're not happy with, or a hair color, or a cut, or we see ourselves when we're 12, we've been picked on by somebody because of our size, then our unconscious mind holds on to that picture and that picture is played out in what our reality is. This is very, very important to understand. It takes everything personally. Everything the unconscious mind hears is, it takes it as legitimate truth, even if it's a lie. So if somebody's calling you names, or you're calling yourself names, then the unconscious mind will take it literally and take it personally. And that helps with holding on to the negative thinking patterns and the negative picture we have of ourselves, or the idea of what we think about ourselves at a conscious level. It controls our perception. Now, if we look at ourselves in the mirror and have a really bad perception of ourselves, we then have recreated a picture in our mind that actually solidifies that belief that we may have, which then tells us exactly what we don't want to be thinking about if we're not being nice to ourselves. And more importantly, it runs and controls our body. It keeps us alive. It keeps us breathing when we're sleeping. It helps us to heal. Its job is to protect us at all costs. However, if we put garbage in, then we get garbage out. So let me go on and explain it from a neurolinguistic standpoint. And Jan mentioned that I'm a trainer of neurolinguistic programming, timeline therapy, and hypnotherapy. And when I was able to access this body of knowledge, my not only practice changed, my whole life changed. When I understood how my mind worked, and if I understood my mind, then I should be able to understand what my clients' minds would be thinking. When I understand how it functions and how I can actually make a change, then and only then could I change my perception of what I thought about myself. Now, I told you that I was challenged with weight when I was younger. I've been on a diet. My first diet I went on when I was age 12. I remember very, very clearly. I grew up in northern Nova Scotia, so another northern community, but I live in Ontario presently, but in northern Nova Scotia, in a small mining community. And I remember at the age of 12, I made a phone call to a dietitian and made my way up to the hospital without my mom knowing, and had an appointment and talked to her about going on my first diet. Now, that wouldn't happen today because a 12-year-old certainly couldn't go into any office without some consent, but I went up there and started my first diet. And I remember following different plans with my mom from the age of 12, feeling not very good about myself, feeling like I was probably the only overweight child in the school. And I look back now at pictures and I wasn't even close to being what is defined today as weight issues. But because I was bigger than my friends, and because I was bigger than my sister, and because everything I looked at, I proverbially put on my stomach area, I was challenged with food and started to have a really, really bad relationship with food and also with myself. So let's go back to talk about how the mind works in pictures and help you understand that maybe this will give you a better perception for yourself on what might be going on in your world. So everything that we take in comes in through sensory data. So at any per second of the day, there's about 11 billion bits per second of information that we are bombarded with each and every day. Now, that's a lot of information, and there's no possible way that we can actually take that information in and utilize it in that volume. So what's interesting about the mind is that the mind has a capacity to break down or delete, distort, and generalize that information and take it down to about 7 plus or minus 2 chunks. So if you can appreciate a large fire hose of information coming at you and breaking it down to about the size of a small straw, not even the smallest, like make it that stir stick that has a hole in it. That's how small of information we were able to take in. And that information we take in determines what our internal picture or representation is. You see, that sensory data actually is the 5 senses. So what we smell, what we taste, what we hear, what we see, and what we touch. That's how we get our information. It's not just words people use. It's not just what we see, but it's all that aspect. Now, in order to break down that information or delete, distort, and generalize, the mind has a series of filters, sort of like the filter in your furnace. And those filters are time, space, matter, and energy, memories, language, decisions, values and beliefs, meta programs, and attitudes. And so I'm going to take a minute and just sort of explain what these are and how we actually get a different snapshot than somebody else that's next to us. And different pictures of what people see in the world, we actually could see it differently based on these filters. So time, space, matter, and energy would be something like where we are in time, time of day. So, I'm on Eastern time. If somebody's from the East Coast, it'd be Atlantic time. From the Western Coast, it'd be, Mountain time. So where are you in the time zones would be something that could change the information that you are picking up. Matter, space, energy. You know what it's like when you go into a room and everybody is upset, and you can go in feeling wonderful, but as soon as you walk in there, you can pick up on that negative energy. Or the opposite is true. You could be in a place where everybody's happy and you could have a bad day, but you walk in there and by the time you're done, you've picked up on that energy, which is a great thing. So time, space, matter, and energy is one of the filters. The second one would be language. Now, if you, obviously, Spanish to English would be a language translation. And if one person knew a little bit of one language and another person knew the opposite in the other language, and they try to communicate, then sometimes they would actually communicate okay, but other times it could be a total misconception of what is going on. And so that language could be. Now, what about body language? What if you're talking to somebody and you're having a conversation and that person says something to you and all of a sudden they cross their arms while they're talking to you? Most people would be a little bit unnerved by that and think, wow, that person doesn't care, or they're not interested, or some sort of derogatory name you might call somebody for looking standoffish. Or maybe they're just cold. Maybe there's a draft that you're not picking up on, but for them, they're cold. So language can determine what we think of somebody. Now, memories is something that people have all the time. Memories around food. What are your memories around food? Is it something that is a good thing? Would you have family functions and it was always a great time and there was food? Or would you have family functions that weren't so nice and there was food associated? So you have a bad association with food. What about memories such as a holiday, where you may actually have been growing up in a home where that holiday was amazing? So when the holiday comes around, you love that time of year. Like Christmas for some people is a really wonderful time, but for other people, it's totally awful, and they don't understand why come November, they're really not in a good mood. And so memories can play on us, no matter if it's good or bad. We can have these responses that happen. And decisions. Decisions is another very important thing to think about, because we make decisions every day. Now, from 0 to 7 is when it's the imprinting time at the unconscious level. And so we take in a whole lot of information between 0 and 7 that we don't necessarily know if it's true or not. But because the conscious mind, or the logical part of our thinking, or the frontal lobe of our brain's not quite mature yet, it's just starting to mature, we don't understand the difference between right and wrong, truth or lie. So at the unconscious level, our mind will make a decision each and every day of our life when we're around situations. And for a child, it's usually decisions that are not helpful or healthy when it comes to food, if there's a food challenge. So a decision such as, I have ice cream when I'm sad. For people who don't eat certain foods, they might say, well, I have a bad reaction when I eat this. Or it might be when I'm happy, I'm allowed to have more food. Or if I'm sad, I am allowed to have more food. We make decisions every day. It's decisions such as, what do women do when they grow up, when they're married? Do they cook? Do they put on large food displays for their family? Does that show I love them? These are all decisions that we make, but we don't realize we're actually doing it. And some of those decisions are wonderful, and some of them are not quite so wonderful. Values and beliefs are very important. And again, it's values and beliefs are connected to not only our family values and beliefs, but the societal values and beliefs, or cultural. They might be educational. They might be things that you've created in your own family that's different from your extended family. Not necessarily things that we like, but things that are important to us. And then we have also metaprograms, and metaprograms play in the area of such as introvert and extrovert. There's many metaprograms that function at the unconscious level. But these things together, after that information gets deleted, distorted, and generalized, creates an internal representation or a picture at the unconscious mind, When that picture happens at the unconscious mind, then it tells every cell in the body to flood it with certain neurotransmitters or chemicals, which then creates our emotional state, which then creates our physiology, then it creates our behavior. So if we tell people to stop eating food, or we tell ourselves we should know better, that not to have this or that, we're just trying to tell ourselves at the conscious level. But in actual fact, we can't make a change until we actually get a change at the internal representational level, change the picture at the unconscious level first, so that we can actually change our behavior. So values and beliefs are really, really important. And those values and beliefs that we carry may say something like, I can't lose weight, I can't stop eating, I crave chocolate, I can't stop eating chocolate if it's around, I have to do X, I can't stop at one piece of whatever, cake, I need to have pasta because I'm Italian, I need to have rice because I'm Spanish. We always have dessert, so we have to have dessert. Women have to be a certain size. Women in my family are all overweight, or all love chocolate. They all love chocolate, or they are all whatever. And there's no time for me. Women constantly say there's absolutely no time for me. And so they put themselves behind everybody else, which is a really disservice, because at the end of the day, you can't take care of others until you take care of yourself first. And so these beliefs and values are very, very important. And if you have some of these, then they're at an unconscious level, and we have to make some changes. Decisions are the same. And again, I mentioned that decisions are made between 0 and 7, and actually before. So some of these decisions that are made at an unconscious level get passed down generationally, believe it or not, from past generations. And it could be decisions that I will always be overweight because I'm big boned, or my mother was overweight and I'm just like her, or my father has a certain diagnosis, so I will be the same, or I will never be thin, or I'm not pretty, I will never, whatever, fill in the blank. My metabolic rate is slow. How many people tell me that it's about my metabolic rate? It may be, but it could be that you believe that so in depth that you actually don't give yourself a chance to change it. I can never be X. I will always fail at Y. I have X disease because my parent has it, etc. These are decisions that we often make, and believe it or not, about 80 to 90% of our healthcare concerns, if you go back and figure it out what they're saying, their clients will tell you, they will tell you, I will have this because of that. They make decisions all the time at an unconscious level. So habits, again, habits only are created when it's repetitious, or there's a repetition of what we're saying. So the self-talk over and over again. And the unconscious mind will take that suggestion from the conscious mind and create it as a truth, and then we will play it out each and every day. Eating is a habit. It's what I do. This is just who I am. We eat the same breakfast every day unless we make a conscious effort to change it. Most people have the coffee the same way, in the same cup in the morning. They sit at the same time of the table every day. They have the same routine every day. And so they have cravings happen at the same time when something happens, habitually. And these habits are created. And if that's the case, then new habits can be created. Because what we focus on and we do repetitiously, we can change it at a habitual level, or at the unconscious level. So it's important that we create change. And it's more than just telling ourselves, because remember, that's behavior. We have to go back and change it at the unconscious level. And so what is your self-talk around food? What's your self-talk about weight? What's your self-talk about health? Is it positive or is it negative? Because remember, the unconscious mind does not process negatives. It will play it out exactly what you're saying. Do you have any trauma in your life? How many women that I have talked to over the last 20 years, when it comes to weight, there's often some sort of traumatic event that either happened consistently over their young childhood, or one time only, that was such an emotional charge at the psyche level that those women tend to eat as a cover-up. Now, this may not be something you've experienced, but it might be something as simple as being told you're overweight when you were little, or you're the big girl, or something with a negative connotation that may not have meant to be negative, but your unconscious mind has taken it up as so. And so with somebody who's had trauma in their life, physical trauma, sexual trauma, severe emotional trauma, often those women don't want to stay attractive. So food is that cover up. It's also the pain cover up. People often eat over that pain, and that's actually no different than using other drugs such as heroin or hard drugs or alcohol. It's covering up the pain. Now, it's important to ask yourself, do you have external influences that are holding you back? And many women who struggle with weight often have friends that struggle with weight too. It's like we stick together with people because it feels right, and we sort of support each other. But often women will tell me that they start going on a health change, and then their friends will sabotage them. Not on purpose, but they start to sabotage. And, you know, the thoughts around the psyche of personalities and people is that we become the equivalent of our 6 closest friends that we hang around with. Whether it is emotional, whether it's physical, whether it's spiritual, whether it's financial, whether it's how we treat each other, or how we treat our families, we often either hang around with people with similar values and beliefs and situations, or we start to morph into them. So who are you hanging around with? Who are your most closest external influences? Now, I'm not telling you to get rid of family and friends, but be very, very critical of yourself in that. Ask yourself, is this person helping me or holding me back? And what's most important is that you need to know what you want. I mean, really know what you want. This is not about anybody else. This is about you. And if you don't have a very, very clear understanding of what you want, you can't create that picture at the unconscious level, which will help you get what you want. I mean, detail. I mean, what clothing size do you want? I really don't care much about the scale, to be honest with you, ladies. I'm more about a clothing size, because depending on how fit you are, if you have more body mass, you have a heavier weight mass. But if your body size is where you want to be, focus on your body size and your measurement at your waist. Don't worry about the scale. It throws us off. Numbers play a really, really integral role in our psyche, and women get caught up on the scale. So please stay away from the scale. Look at your body size and decide what works for you. Find an old picture of yourself that you actually loved yourself in that picture. Put it up so you can see it every day. That's the type of picture you need at the unconscious level. But you want to, more importantly, you want to see yourself there. You want to hear what you'd hear people say to you when you're at that goal. You want to feel what you really feel when you're at that goal. You need to get emotionally connected to that picture. It is so important, because everything we play out in our life, not only is there a picture created, but there's an emotional charge that goes with it. So be very clear with what you want in your life. Write it down. Start writing things down and see yourself there. Get excited about it. Remember, it's what you want. It's not what you don't want. The unconscious mind does not process negatives. People often say what they don't want. They want to lose weight. Well, that means that you're actually going to maintain the weight. Say you want to be at a certain size. Focus on being healthy, being fit, wearing a certain size. That's what you want to focus on. Financially, if you want to throw in some other things about your income and relationships, go ahead. This all works the same way. Imagine your success. You want to see yourself already there as if it's already there. Fake it until you make it at the unconscious level, that picture in your mind, because the unconscious mind does not know the difference if it's reality or not. Create it in your mind first. You want to be around positive influences. You need to set boundaries around people that might negatively influence you. And the question I have for you, are you willing to do what it takes to get to where you want to be? Do you want to know, are you willing to take charge of your health and be your own boss and do what it takes? So you have to know what you want. So to break it down as I finish up, you want to know what you're thinking about. You need to focus on what you want. You have to determine what you're feeling. If you're around food and you're thinking a certain way and you're feeling a certain way, know what it is that you're feeling and you're thinking, and then do the opposite. Make a different comment in your head. If you're feeling really bad about yourself, tell yourself you're You're getting better and better each day. Feel the opposite of what you're feeling. Do something opposite with what you've done in the past that hasn't worked. Focus on things that have actually worked. And more importantly, if you have a lot of these triggers that are holding you back, it's really important to get a change at the unconscious level. And if you're not able to do it yourself with positive reinforcements, then find somebody who can coach you or counsel you through this to eliminate some of these negative belief patterns. I use this timeline therapy and neurolinguistics and hypnotherapy in my office all the time, and I help people get to the root cause of these negative beliefs and decisions. If you can't find somebody to do that, visualization is really, really influential. And visualize yourself being where you need to be each and every day, especially just before you go to bed, so your unconscious mind can work on that. And use positive affirmations. If somebody else is telling you something negative, cancel it out. If you're telling yourself something negative, cancel it out. Use positive affirmations so you can get yourself back on track. Hopefully that gave you a little bit of information. Jan told me about 30 minutes, so I think I'm right about there. Jan?
Karen, I mean, you created a whole new level of consciousness for me tonight. You know, I've always done positive self-talk, and I have to say that you really crystallized something that I didn't realize that I knew was so important. And that is, whenever I would talk to people, I always speak in pictures, and I never realized how important it was to speak in pictures to yourself.
Absolutely.
I never knew that about the conscious and unconscious mind. So thank you for creating that consciousness for me. How does somebody really deprogram themselves from a lifetime of the same behavior besides just the positive self-talk? I mean, if anybody has questions, they can type them in the chat. But my question is, if there's an issue that I know I'm always doing positive self-talk, I do it all the time. I'll say it out loud so I hear it, so I think it. How many times or how long should it take for that to make a difference in my life?
Right. So there's two answers to that. By practicing over and over and over again the positive self-talk, again, once at the habitual level, it doesn't take long. It's really when you really believe it. It's so important not just to say it, but get excited about it at the same time. You have to connect the thought with an emotional charge to get the outcome you're looking for. So if you say something positive, but you're saying in your heart of hearts, that's crap, there's no way I believe that, then you've just canceled out that positive thought with a negative emotion. So you have to really get charged up. And I tell people all the time is if you can change your emotional state really quickly, you will actually help solidify that positive affirmation. So for instance, is there a certain genre of music that you really love to listen to? And then you start telling yourself these positive affirmations, turn it on and get excited about it, because your unconscious mind solidifies with these positive comments when there's a positive emotion that goes with it. Because you know what it feels like when you're not feeling great about yourself. You're saying all those negative comments. You feel awful on the inside. So that's what the unconscious mind is solidifying. It's really important to change it up. In my office, I have my clients, and usually within, around 4 hours, maybe 6 hours of maximum working with clients, we get rid of all this stuff and it's gone permanently. So there's fast ways to do it, or there's slow ways to do it. Depends on what people are being challenged with.
So in addition to counsel, and there's a couple questions here, I wanted to ask you, in addition to emotional and mental counseling, what are other tools that you use when you're working with clients and patients? Because you talked a lot about self-image and weight loss, and I know a lot of people depend on different tools to help them accomplish their goals. What are other things that you can share that you might recommend for people who need more than emotional counseling?
Right. Absolutely. And tools are so important. We're in a fast-paced society. People want things quickly. They want to have the easy way out. And of course, it's much easier if you have the right tools, not just any tools. So I use Unicity products all the time. I've been doing weight loss programs from the standpoint of food for about 20 years, and having a good, solid nutritional base is essential. If you're not getting the right food in your body, it will not perform no matter what you do or what you think. And so people also go through the struggles of cravings, and they don't want to feel that way. It's sort of like somebody not smoking. They don't want to crash if they have a nicotine crash. So the products that I use, I mean, Complete is an amazing way to have your meal made for you. And for people that if food is a challenge and they don't want to, they find that they just want to have something quick or they'll get into trouble, having Complete for a couple meals a day is a great way to get started. Using Balance, of course, is a way to slow down the breakdown of carbohydrates so that you get a slow insulin response, which gives you a slow fat storing capacity, and you don't crash out, so therefore you don't put yourself into a craving mode. So those are my go-tos for my clients. Matcha is amazing because it's great energy, and so I love matcha. Even somebody who just wants to have extra antioxidants and just feel good. And omega-3s are really important because from the standpoint of having lower down inflammation in your body, it's one of those things that everybody needs. And obviously the fiber if you need extra fiber. So I use these products all the time. Not everybody wants to use them all, but I really feel it's important to educate people on how the body works from a chemical standpoint, how the mind works from a mindset standpoint, and then more importantly, how do they eat properly and what tools do they have that they can choose from if they want to use them.
So I love the fact that you're open-minded to recommend supplemental tools in addition to your counseling, because many counselors are not. Obviously, you recognize some people just don't possess the strength to conquer everything themselves. And so if they do have some tools that are available to make the task that they're trying to accomplish easier, I'm really glad that you are somebody that endorses that. You said something that I made a note of. You said something about being habitual and the importance of repetition. And I think immediately of what you have on your screen here, the Get Fit 21, because that is something that causes a habitual behavior. And I wondered if you can share your impression on the Get Fit 21 program, that concept that can help a lot of people with the issues that you discussed tonight.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, again, people want things easy when they struggle in the regular day with food. So the Get Fit 21 is an amazing program that not only gives you the simple techniques to actually get to your goals, it allows you to do it without doing a lot of thinking because you have a coach that actually helps you through it. And that's important. So you need somebody to be accountable to and somebody to encourage you. And the meals, the recipes are there that you can help people just make these things using the Complete in the first week twice in the day, and then having one meal really sets people up to only have to worry about one meal a day they have to focus on. And this is all important when you're getting people to change your life, because when you change your lifestyle, people are not usually changing their life at a big level. They're still going to work. They're still running around with their kids. They're still trying to take care of their partners. They still have the stressors. So this program is a really, really easy way to get started with the process of eventually having real foods that they can use these products as a support when they need to, but they can also have that flexibility as they get going through the program to have good, healthy meals, and it's all there for them.
Well, having been someone that's gone through that program, I can tell you just the accountability part of it was a really positive factor that helped form certain habits that I didn't have before.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm really honing in on that habitual repetition comment you made earlier. Somebody was asking in the chat, they say, what do you do with, this must be a healthcare provider, they're asking, what do they do with their patients who are really stuck with lifelong negative self-talk? How do we initiate the positive talk with them? Right.
And you know what? This is a really, really important question, because those of us who are trained in healthcare, we're not taught to talk, we're not taught to speak or treat our patients in a positive manner. We want to diagnose them and tell them the bad things that are going on in their life. So people are really prone to think there's got to be something wrong with me. And if there's something wrong with me, once I have that diagnosis, that's all I have. I'm in a different mindset. I mean, I've been a nurse practitioner for 20 years. I've been nursing for 30 years. And my life has changed as far as how my practice has, because it's about focusing on the client to take ownership of their life. I can't fix people, but I have tools to help people, but they have to want to do it with me. So what I start saying to my clients is, so you have this challenge, what What do you want differently? Because if you don't get them focus on what they want, then they're going to think about what they don't want, which is what they have. So it's about what do they want instead? And ask them enough specific questions with what they want until they get a clear picture. And then the next question is, what are you going to do about it? What can I help you with, but what are you going to do about it? Because me writing a prescription for a statin may give somebody an option as an easy way out to lower their cholesterol, but really at the end of the day, the cholesterol goes up, then the blood pressure goes up, then the coronary disease happens, and it's a cycle. So are we really helping people by giving them a drug? I'm not against drugs, but I'm against it when they're not allowing the client to take ownership. So I think healthcare providers have to do a better job of asking what the client wants and what they're willing to do to get there, and then how can we support them?
It's a great answer. It makes a lot of sense. And you're right. The healthcare professionals in many cases are too quick to write prescriptions. And so, I appreciated that question. And I appreciated you tonight, Karen. You brought to the surface some very interesting, thought-provoking content. And I'm going to look forward to going back and watching this again and learning. Again, I was taking notes, but I know that, when you see something twice, you pick up even more. So I want to thank you so much for your time. I know people spend a fortune to consult with you, and we had this opportunity with you, all on you. So Karen, thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you when we host our next event that you'll be available for.
Thanks, Janice. My pleasure. And thank you, ladies, for joining and spending your time with me. Hopefully I've answered some questions, and let me know if I can help out.
Thanks, Karen. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.